I was diagnosed with acute myeloid leukemia, which is, in my case, was an intermediate level of leukemia and cancer, where it was one of those things where it wasn't, totally, it wasn't a death sentence, but it wasn't something I could just, take some pills and walk away from. And it was going to take a transplant to save me.
Greetings, friends. Welcome to episode 204 of Into the Necrosphere. This week, I'm joined by all four members of the band Fuming Mouth out of Boston to talk about their brand new record, The Last Day of Sun. We also spoke at length about their frontman Mark Whelan's fight with and victory over leukemia, along with a host of other topics. It's a heartfelt and inspiring conversation that will be coming your way very shortly. But first, there is a brand new sick single that has just been released this past weekend. It's called King of Kings, and you're about to hear it right now.
Yeah.
That was King of Kings by Sick. The song is available right now on Bandcamp. No word yet on whether it will be part of a new album soon to be released, but you can bet your bottom dollar that Matt Prizzo tends to work at pace, so I would not be surprised if we get a Christmas surprise or something early in the new year. If you haven't checked it out, of course, make sure that you give a listen to the Sick debut record, Cast Below to Rise Above. I had Matt on the show talking about it, if you guys missed that episode. Great dude, great band, massively talented artist, and make sure that you head over to Bandcamp and show him your love and support. My friends, if you're new to the podcast and you like what you've heard so far, then make sure that you elbow drop the subscribe button on your platform of choice, whether that be Spotify, Stitcher, Amazon, Apple, or wherever else you consume your podcasts from. Follow me on Instagram, Facebook, and X, and very critically, make sure that you are supporting my fellow horsemen of the podcasting apocalypse. Every Monday, we get you started with a dose of horror, courtesy of the inimitable Brandon Legion, delivering another episode of Horror Wolf 666. This week, he is talking to Mike Hill of Tombs about two of the greatest films to ever be made, Predators 1 and 2. On a Tuesday, yours truly casts hexes and slays poses on Into the Necrosphere. My guest next week is scheduled to be Chris Pervalis of Internal Bleeding, making his return to the podcast. Really excited about that. The dude has a ton of old school death metal stories and a whole bunch more to talk about, so make sure that you are back next week for that. On a Wednesday, Mike Hill himself brings you another episode of his long-running podcast, Everything Went Black. He returns on a Thursday with perhaps one of my favorite podcasts of the week, Necromaniacs, alongside his co-hosts, Sheriff Mike Scondado and Professor Jeff Kashid. Every Thursday and Sunday, the sinister minister, Carl Hikara, brings you another installment of Soul Knocks, and then waiting in the wings, intermittently ready to swoop when you least expect it, Cheyenne of the band Trivax brings you another dose of his fantastic podcast, Iblis Manifestations. My friends, once I am done with the gentleman from Fuming Mouth, don't go anywhere, because I've got a big-ass news rant for you this week. We're going to be talking about new music by the likes of Domination Campaign. We are also going to be talking about a video that was shared recently about Spotify that I thought was pretty interesting, particularly in light of some of the conversations we've been having about services like AMPWALL, etc. So stick around for that, but right now sit back and enjoy as I welcome to the podcast for the first time all four gentlemen that make up the ranks of Fuming Mouth. All right, so welcome, gentlemen, and as we were just saying before I hit record, Mark, I was prepping to speak to you, but great that I've got everybody here. I think first question for me, Last Day of Sun came out this past Friday. How does it feel now that this is out and you're starting to see the response for it coming through? And generally speaking, the response that I've seen everywhere, with the exception of Angry Metal Guy, who never gives a good review, but the response overall is super positive. Yeah,
it's been incredible. Our first album like really went under the radar as far as like reviews and all that goes, just because first band's album came out on a really DIY record label at the time, Triple B Records, and being on Nuclear Blast now, seeing all these reviews and all of them being positive, it's amazing.
Well, the first time that I ever heard Fuming Mouth was when the They Take What They Please single came out, and I fucking absolutely loved that. Thought it was really, really cool. And then very shortly after that, the news came out that you'd been diagnosed with leukemia. And can you kind of shed a little bit more light on exactly what you were diagnosed with?
Yeah, I was diagnosed with acute myeloid leukemia, which is in my case was an intermediate level of leukemia and cancer, where it was one of those things where it wasn't, it wasn't a death sentence, but it wasn't something I could just, take some pills and walk away from. And it was going to take a transplant to save me.
Yeah. So at what point did you start to, did you start to experience symptoms, or did you figure I need to get myself checked out? Because I'm going to assume you're like most men, which is, you'll feel something is wrong, but you tend to ignore it and you go, fuck it, I'll see the doctor next month. What kind of prompted you to have or to to get checked out and get diagnosed?
Dude, I mean, me and Budwey, it was Halloween. We drank like 20 beers. It was awesome. There's like an awesome picture of us. I'm dressed like the Grim Reaper and you're dressed like a cowboy. And like, I had felt sick during the day, but had ignored it and was thinking it was something like, I don't know, I had been drinking or something like that. And then just every day progressively, I just kept feeling worse and worse. I thought I had the flu. And then after 2 weeks of it, I finally got like blood tests. My fiance's mom, Paula, told my fiance to tell me to get blood tests, and I checked and I had no white blood cells.
And at that point they were like, okay, something is seriously wrong here.
We have to figure out what's going on. From there, I had a bone marrow transplant and we found out I had cancer.
So you had the bone marrow transplant prior to being diagnosed properly, or?
No. Yes, I did. I think there was speculation that I had it. They didn't want to scare me. And so we had the bone marrow transplant, not the bone marrow transplant, bone marrow biopsy. Sorry. A lot of the words get confused. It's been a long time.
No, it's fine.
And the bone marrow biopsy, so when they take like a little piece of your bone out of your like hip, they drill in with like a wine corkscrew. It's more brutal than anything you would hear in an autopsy song or Cannibal Corpse or anything. I'm so serious. I would have rather been shot.
I was just about to say, I mean, I've never experienced that thing. Fuck. But that sounds like it hurts like a bastard.
Yeah, it does. And that's how they found out that they were able to find out that I had cancer. Yes.
What was your response, or what were the first things that went through your head when they told you?
The first thing I said was, I just want to play one more show. And I broke down. Like, I really broke down just because we were really gaining some steam with our first album. And we had been taken off the road from the pandemic. And then we were just writing. I was really writing so much inside. And then, we had this whole, like, I had all these hopes and dreams, Yeah. And then, like, it was like in that moment, it was like, you gotta be kidding me. It was already like, there was so much patience involved. And then it was like this huge health scare and obstacle to overcome. So that was the first thought in my mind. But then right after that, it switched gears into like, all the doctors in Boston are incredible, and it switched gears into like fighting back against it and beating it, and that's kind of all it really came down to,
And so, what did that entail? I mean, aside from the bone marrow transplant, did you go through radiation therapy or anything like that?
No radiation, thankfully. I was talking to a guy at this show we played in Portland, Oregon. Do you guys remember what that venue was called?
Was it with Vane or?
No, it was with the Black Dahlia Murder and Terror.
It
was like the one.
Roseland Theater?
Yeah. And there was a guy there who had radiation and it like destroyed him. I didn't have that, luckily. I just had chemotherapy. And the way it works is I just got blasted with chemotherapy until I was like nothing, like reduced to not even a human. And then that's when I had the bone marrow transplant.
Yeah. So, like throughout all of this, I mean, how long did the process take, more or less, from start to finish?
Dude, it was hard because we were going to do it so fast. I thought I was going to have the world record for a bone marrow transplant because, like, I got into a remission immediately. Like, right when I had the first round of chemo, which is not even that strong. It's just to like keep you like from dying. I went into remission. So we got into remission like in December 2021. And then we were going to try and do the bone marrow transplant in January 2022. And then next thing we knew, there's a new variant of COVID. And my donor could not, from what I understand, was able to go into the hospital to give the donation, but they would not let her in because she had COVID. And so then that got delayed until March, and then that extended to April, and then there's a whole recovery time period after you get it. And it's hard. It's like it's hard to like really give it an exact number of how long it took, but here I am.
Did you ever get to meet your donor?
No, not yet. I'm trying to. When we go to Poland, I'm definitely going to meet them. You can meet them after like 2 years, I guess is like the rule. I don't know why they have that rule.
I was just about to say, I'm asked out of curiosity more than anything else. I don't know how that works, but
yeah,
I would imagine you'd at least want to shake their hand and say,
I want to hug
thank you so much.
I got to make an album. I get to hang out with my boys. Got engaged. I get to live life again, and legitimately get a second chance at life. So yeah, when we tour Poland, I'll be meeting my donor. I don't know who it is, but we'll see.
Did you ever have a sense that like this could be like based on either what the doctors said to you or just how you were feeling at the time? Did you kind of get that sense that, look, I might have reached the end of the road, or the very least, the road could be significantly shortened based on this?
No, not at all. I'm going to be the opposite. Nurgle had acute myeloid leukemia in Behemoth, and he's sitting pretty at like 15 years. He doesn't give a fuck. So I'm going to kind of copy his style. Yeah.
What was it that kept you going through all of that? Because for me, like, I was listening to Last Day of Sun when it came out, and this is why I reached out to Nuclear Blast and wanted to get you on the podcast, because it's such an inspirational story for me to have gone through that amount of adversity, and then you come out. And I think the first thing that really struck me was just how, like, when I watched the music video for I'll Find You, like there was a, there's sometimes you get like an intangible sense of just something, like a certain kind of energy that's coming off a song or coming off a performance.
Oh,
and even just from the video, I watched it and I was like there's a real urgency. I think that's the only word I can use. Like, yeah, there's a real urgency. As I said, best word I can think of. In the moment. But that's what, when everything started coming together for me, when I listened to the record, I was like, this is such a fucking inspirational story. Someone having gone through something so absolutely horrific and then to come out guns blazing with this record. And I think it would be something that is particularly, hopefully motivating for people listening to this, because I get, from time to time, people messaging me saying, I'm going through X, Y, Z, maybe it's personal problems, maybe it's health problems.
I can imagine with streaming, interviewing, all of that, that's just like, it's what people turn to.
Yeah. Hell yeah. But back to the question that I had, like, what was the main thing that kept you going?
I would say just like, there's so many things. I think it's just community is a huge thing, and just knowing I had like an unseen amount of people that were supporting me and wanted me to live and not die, and like just constantly having that. Especially like I couldn't have visitors a lot of the time because it was during the pandemic, so they wouldn't let people into the hospital, and so I was alone for a lot of it. And I feel like just a lot of that support kept me going. And then I think my loved ones, for sure. Music, getting back to music. There's so many things. I can't really just pinpoint it to one thing,
Mm-hmm. So a question for the guys in the band, like, how did you guys respond, or, what was the reaction in the band when when Mark broke the news?
It was crazy. I think I was like, it took me a long time to like process it. Like and just like it took a while for the reality to set in. It was crazy. It was a crazy time.
I remember that day. I wasn't in the band yet, and I didn't know Mark or Budwey or Pat at that point, but I had been like obsessing over Fuming Mouth, like essentially as a fan. Like listening to it a lot, and I think I had made like a cover video, like a drum cover video, like that I posted maybe it's tough to say, but like maybe a month before, Mark announced that he had leukemia, and I remember like seeing that just like on Instagram and just being like, oh fuck, like, and I'm like, for me, like usually if I see I'm like feel like I'm pretty used to seeing bad news on my phone, so it's like I'll see something and go, yeah, you know. And I remember that day just being like, just being down, and I remember talking to my roommate, and he was like, dude, are you okay? And I was like, yeah, I'm fine. I just found out this thing about like one of my favorite bands. So, you know.
Mark, just kind of getting back to you, like, you know, post recovery, or actually while you were recovering, you know, have you gone on, you know, have you changed anything about your diet? Have you made any adjustments in your life to kind of help speed the recovery along?
I'm constantly having to adjust due to my medicine. Like I'm still on medicine to battle. Like after you get a transplant like that, you anyone could get this. Selena Gomez had graft versus host disease, and it's something I have too. And so I'm on medicine for that. And with some of those medicines, like depending on the medicine, I might have to have like dietary restrictions. Or like, you know, hygiene is like another important one. Our first tour back, it was like I was at risk of like infection. So it's not like we could just like sleep just like in the mud, like Fuming Mouth had been used to, you know? So like being aware of hygiene, being aware of like, you know, what medicines I'm on, that's when things like, that's what's more important than me eating like a cheeseburger or a salad.
Yeah. And you know, you were mentioning about the restrictions with the hospitals and things like that. One of the things that happened here during COVID is I have a friend whose fiance got diagnosed with breast cancer, and because of the backlog with the hospitals, and obviously we've got nationalized health service here, her actual treatment was delayed by about 9 months because they said, you know, the hospitals are full. You know, we don't have anybody that can see you. Did you experience any of that as well?
No, that's exactly what I experienced. Like I couldn't get. I was supposed to have my bone marrow transplant in January 2022, and I had to wait until March. And during that time period, I think I was on like 60 milligrams of like oxycodone, and like I wasn't like a function because I was also in so much pain, like waiting to get this thing. And I was just getting my ass beat, and I was just like playing Elden Ring and just like blasting like metal all day.
I don't know if Elden Ring is the best way to relax you, because I have now attempted twice to beat the game, and I know there's probably a lot of people listening to this that have beaten and going, you're a pussy, but I get to Milena. And then I'm stuck. Milena and the Elden Beast, I cannot get by. I've tried tanking, I've tried sorcery, I've tried everything, and it drives me fucking insane.
I made my character a joke. I leveled him up so much, I called him Ball, and his armor was just this huge. I forget what the armor is called, but it's this big ball.
It's like that bull. It's like I think they call it like the.
You know what I'm talking about,
bull
right?
God.
It's not. Maybe that's what it is, but I just like made a troll character and beat Elden Beast with it, and I put way too much time in that game. It's safe to say that game is like cigarettes.
It's absolutely horrific.
Like,
I think it makes my fiance think that I've got Tourette's. Like I've got Tourette syndrome when I play it, because it's like I'll be playing, having a good time, and then the blue streak is just firing out from the fucking living room when I'm playing it. It's an awesome game, but those last two bosses, like as I said, I don't know if I needed to relax and get my stress down. I'm not sure whether it would be the game I would choose. Yeah,
for me in that time period, it was the right game. It was like, this is so much. This is hard. This is hard. What I'm going through in life isn't that hard. This video game is hard. It was like constantly saying that kind of thing to myself, you know.
Put that on the box.
I know, right?
You know, if I had to choose between cancer treatment and Elden Ring, you know. But
Into the Necrosphere needs Dark Souls or an Elden Ring sponsorship after this interview.
Oh, dude, it would be fucking amazing if that would happen. They could do it right before that. I mean, the one thing I'm excited about, partly because it gives me hopefully something extra to play, is the Elden Ring DLC. I'm not sure when that's due out, but you've no doubt seen Shadow of the Erd Tree. It should be coming out, I think, in like February or March. Really? But that's going to be fucking genius. And I want to try some of the mods as well, but it's mostly just it's delay tactics because, like I said, I can't get by Malena and past the Elden Beast. So, like when you guys are on tour right now and you're playing shows and stuff like that, does the medicine impact you at all? And you know, do you kind of get do you feel, does it catch up to you when you're on stage or when you guys have been doing a couple of shows, you know, successively?
Yeah, I'd say so. It gets really confusing. It's like up and down, like whether I'm feeling good or bad, and depends on like kind of throughout the day what I'm feeling. And it's hard to really explain like the feeling I have, whether it's like whether it's fatigue or like mobility issues. But then sometimes I don't have either of those, and it's really hard to gauge. Right now, I'm on this medication called Rezurock. And like the advertisements, shout out to Rezurock. The advertisements are like,
you're gonna fish for them to get to give me an endorsement as well.
Yeah, right. No, shout out to Rezurock because it's allowing me to fucking feel normal, where I don't feel the fatigue and I don't feel those mobility issues. So, you know, I'm resurrected and I'm rocking.
And how long have the doctors said that this is likely to carry on for? Is it like, you know, is it indefinite? Do they see it going away eventually?
Yeah, it definitely goes away. Like eventually, like as time goes on, like the transplant, like is supposed to, you know, get better and assimilate with you more. So it should be, you know, I'm feeling good now, and I think I'm going to be feeling great even sooner.
Yeah. Well, dude, I mean, I'm psyched to be able to talk to you, and as I said, for me, it was, you know, discovering the band and then seeing the news very, very shortly after that. It was, it was really shit. So when you pulled through, I was fucking, you know, absolutely delighted. And like I said, absolutely delighted to be able to talk to you. But I wanted to talk a bit about Last Day of Sun. And I know from just reviews that I read, there's a concept to this record that's separate to anything that you experienced. But listening to the album, I'm sure you've had this from multiple people. Like you can't help but get a sense that even if it's just in the performance, you were drawing from your experience to a certain degree. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, it's fair to say. I mean, I was really living it. That's what I was seeing around me. I was seeing people die in the hospital every day. Like I was going through that experience. Absolutely. So there's no way that it didn't affect the album. The reality is the album was written and tracked with another drummer before we recorded it with Charlie Corinne of Morbid Angel, Fume Barum, Incantation, etc. But that was more of just like demos and a lot of like live recordings. And from that process to what it is now, it really did become something totally different. And I do think my experience with having a transplant, having cancer, having all these like health issues definitely sculpted the album in a different way.
Yeah. How did James, how did you end up playing with the band? Because you mentioned you were a fan previously, and then, you know, obviously you're playing with them now, which must be fucking amazing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I think you found that cover video, right?
Yeah.
So eventually, I think, Mark, when you got home, when you were back home, you were like, yeah, I saw your video. I think you have a decent grasp of like what we're trying to do, right? And then you were like, so do you want to jam sometime? And so that kind of became like us getting together to play a couple times. And like I remember the first time we got together, it was like at my place in Somerville, just me and Mark and Budwey. And we'd play like 3 songs and we'd chill for a bit, and then we'd like play another 3 songs. And then we like met up to jam again, and like, you know, we played all 8 songs in a row that I had learned. But yeah, basically Mark just reached out, and I flipped out, obviously, and essentially just cleared my week and just like sat at my desk air drumming to drum stems, trying to learn the songs like as particular as or like as exactly as I like possibly could. Yeah, it was definitely kind of like a fever dream moment.
You must have thought someone's fucking with you when the email came through, and it was like, or when you got a message and you were like, "Hey, it's Mark from Fuming Mouth. You know, we'd love to play."
Yeah, it was definitely. I remember where I was for sure. I was like doing yard work, and I was just like looking at my phone, like changing the song or something, and I was like, "Holy shit!" I definitely flipped out.
And Mark, did you just randomly discover him on YouTube? You just kind of...
There was like 10 drummers I was talking to at that time.
Yeah.
And I was even talking to like John Rice. Like he's played for like Behemoth, Job for Boy, 1349. And like all these great drummers, Matt Guglielmo, who played with us before, were kind of more like session drummers. But the great thing about James was he was like saying how he was long-term committed to the band. So like it made it this thing where it's like, oh, wow, we don't have to just have some kind of session drummer. We can have like a long-term member. And that's where it was like, dude, this is perfect. And then I saw that YouTube video, emailed him about it. He was like on board. And we just started working.
Yeah, I mean, how did you come across John? Were you planning on getting him in as a session drummer?
I think so. It was one of those things. My friend Anthony met him because he had been playing with Uncle Acid and the Deadbeats.
Yeah,
he played with them too, and he had met him. He's like, I got his number. You should hit him up. And we just started like texting a ton. And then, there's a bunch of other people too. But James.
I mean, he as you say, he's played for some fucking serious bands: Behemoth, Job for a Cowboy, Cephalic Carnage, the Red Chord.
Yes.
I mean, the Red Chord, I wish would be resurrected. I think they're absolutely awesome. But so James then turned out to be the man, and James performed on the new record as well.
He did, yeah.
Did that influence the dynamic of the album in any way?
Yeah, I'd say so.
Like just in his playing style, or were you guys kind of like talk to me about the recording of the record? Was it like, did you guys do it in a studio? Did you do it at home? How did it how did that kind of play out?
Well, like we spent a lot of time demoing. I would like either demoing or jamming. So like either I'd bring my laptop to Mark's or Mark would come over, and I'd kind of press the keys and we'd like work on these songs, a lot of which were like ideas that you already had, Mark, that you had come up with.
Or even demos that I had like done in Ableton, or like we work in like DAWs, like digital audio workstations.
Yeah.
So like James uses Reaper. I use like Andrew's using Logic. I use Logic too. Like we bounce around and make songs in a lot of those like programs.
So it's not like the majority of like death metal bands where the music is just summoned by the devil and it just appears on CD.
Maybe it is. Maybe it is the computer. Some people say the computer is the devil.
Through the ground.
Well, you never know. But the concept of Last Day of Sun, talk to me about that, because like I said, I mean, obviously it's separate from anything that you experience, but there's still like a from everything I've read, there's a pretty significant kind of heavyweight concept idea behind all of the songs on the record.
Yeah, I mean, Last Day of Sun started immediately once the Grand Descent was recorded, and it really just started as this thing where I saw like 30 Days a Night. I was watching that movie. You know that movie?
Yeah,
with the vampires, and it said
awesome
Last
movie.
And I was like, oh wow, that the next album title? And then from there I kind of just ran with this idea of like, imagine if you only had like one day left to live and like the sun was about to go out. That's where like books like Shadow of the Torturer, Claw of the Consolator, like Book of the New Sun series by like Gene Wolfe kind of came into play. Other like other albums that dealt with like apocalyptic themes or dystopian themes. There's a book, Children of Men, and just like a lot of like dystopian kind of apocalyptic concepts kind of came into the album. And then that just shaped like this idea of, 12 hours of sunlight, 12 songs,
Yeah. Oh, Children of Men, by the way, you've seen that movie as well, I'm going to assume, with Clive Owen. Very, very good. It's interesting, though, like listening to Last Day of Sun, because I was trying to suss what the concept was about as I'm listening through the record. And a lot of it sounds very contemporary. And as you were mentioning about it being, very apocalyptic, I'm kind of thinking to myself, Is that just like a comment on the state of society right now, where you can hear these very apocalyptic songs and these very apocalyptic lyrics and go, yeah, that just sounds like downtown Boston or downtown London? Is there like a degree of influence from contemporary society that went into that, or is it kind of purely fantastical and it's the coincidences just happen to be exactly that? It's just a coincidence.
It was fictional, it really was fictional. But I mean, there were times where I saw like the riots in Boston on Newbury Street, and how like crazy it was to see just like every store getting looted in 2020, and every window smashed, cops like just beating people, trying to like grab people. I skateboarded like down to the Newbury like street area, and it was just like total mayhem. That was in like a time period, and most cities in America were like, there was a lot of carnage like that. And I think everything, I think a lot of that like kind of shaped it. Seeing a lot of like civil unrest from both sides definitely shaped it. But at the end of the day, the influences are fictional. This is a fictional album, I think it just got too real.
Yeah, it starts to feel when you singing the lyrics, it's like this is becoming like prophecy now. When you look at everything that's happening, everything that's unfolding. Yeah. How did you guys end up getting signed by Nuclear Blast? Because as you say, the Grand Descent, that was, I think it was Triple B Records was the label. So very very underground and very niche. And Nuclear Blast is obviously one of the biggest games in town.
Yeah.
That was so we got connected to Nuclear Blast because we were trying to do a music video with Ian McFarland from Blood for Blood, Polyglot from Maine, and he had set us up with a lawyer, right, Patty
Jones, yeah, the one and only.
And she had worked with Monty back in the day, and I think we had pitched obviously to multiple labels, but she made that connection, and that was, I think at the time, that was really, it's like you apply to all these colleges, and it's like you got the one you're really gunning for, and worked out like that. So
and they were the one you were really gunning for.
Yeah, they were. Fred Etzby did sound for us in Brooklyn at the Monarch when Fuming Mouth played there in 2019, and he kind of put it into our ear to sign it. He didn't put it into our ear. He just flat out said, he's like, you should sign to Nuclear Blast, the drummer of Dismember, one of our biggest influences. So then that's when it was like just sewn into our minds, I think.
Yeah. They are a very good fit for you, and I always think of like an ever-flowing stream whenever I've particularly when I've listened to this last record. So interesting that you mentioned the Dismember connection there as well. But as kind of a younger band coming from a smaller label, moving to a bigger label like this, has there been anything that has surprised you about what it's like to be on a label like this relative to what your expectations were before you made that deal or before you made that move?
What do you think, Pat?
I mean, there's always, I don't know if the word a learning curve is the right word, but things always change. Things are always different. So I don't really know anything specific that stands out to me.
Nothing about touring or anything like that?
No, it's all the same song and dance. I mean, other than we have to be on time a lot, so that's cool.
There's more discipline when you guys go on tour now.
We gotta have we do sound checks, and that's nice. Sometimes we get some beers. It's cool,
Are you headlining on your tour that you're on right now?
No, we're not.
Who are you playing with?
Devil Master.
Okay, all right. And how have their audience taken to you guys?
I think I think it's a little new to them, but I think they really like it. Especially last night was like very much like a death rock show with the opener and everything like that, which was cool. But tonight is this band Gordon Brace, who we played with before. They're a death metal band. They're going to be opening, so it's going to be kind of more in our field and our genre. So night to night, it kind of changes, you know. As far as their crowd goes, though, we come from punk, and they are definitely still ingrained in punk just as much as they might be in black metal or thrash, if you would. And so there is like a crossover, you know.
Well, I was about to say, you guys are also, you're a reasonably versatile proposition to take on tour, right? Like I could see you mentioned touring with Terror earlier. You know, I could see you guys playing a show with Terror just as easily as I could see you playing a show with At the Gates, and you would be able to go over very well with the audience. You know, I guess depending on who the audience is. Where do you seem to find the most traction? Is it typically with a hardcore crowd, or is it more with death metal, with extreme music?
That's a tough one. I'm not really sure. I feel like because we've done a lot of different kind of touring, where we've done like package tours, like Live Nation, big venue. We've done like complete opposite, like more congruous stuff, like all death metal bands. We've toured with metalcore bands, and I feel like at this point we've built like kind of a coalition from many corners of this greater world, you know. But I think it kind of depends on the show and even the city, like as far as like there's more of this or more of that, but like that's a good question.
I would definitely like. I was going to ask you, and actually, maybe I'll still ask you this. Like the bands you've played with that maybe you were most intimidated to have to share a stage with, because I know from having seen them, like a band like Terror, you absolutely know you're going to have to bring your A game, because when Scott gets on stage, I mean, he takes over the stage for however long they're on there.
They're great.
Has there been anybody else that you guys have played with where you were like, "Fuck, man, we're really gonna have to take, get a few shots in before we get up on that stage and make sure that we actually, we bring it tonight"?
Megadeth, 100%. It was we just played with them in the Netherlands, and it was like it's one of those bands where there's a legacy behind it, and there's such incredible musicianship, no matter who's playing with them live. And opening for them at Dynamo Fest was like that was a serious one. That was one. Yeah. That was a real big one. Yeah.
And you guys obviously grew up listening to Megadeth, so I would assume it's it's one of those things where you're looking at Dave or you're looking at guys in the band, you're going, how the fuck has this happened?
Total surreal moment. Yeah.
It was so intense that we all forgot it just now, except for Mark.
The PTSD from having to play before Dave is. How did you guys all meet? Because again, like we've only been talking for a relatively short while, but like you can get a sense straight away. There's a real kind of camaraderie and a real brotherhood. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Sleeping in a van will do that.
Spooning in a van will do that.
It's cold in November.
Yeah. I mean, me and Budwey have been going to shows together for so long, and then Pat, I had known adjacent to another band out in Baltimore, but I didn't even realize that was him, and it was kind of just like serendipity that like him and I crossed paths. We had our friend Sam Nevin, who was playing bass for us, but he can't tour full time. He could not do it. So then Pat kind of stepped into the fold. He was already touring. He was already a road dog. He played in this band No Moss, fantastic grind band on Closed Casket Activities. And so we, all those things just kind of added up, and then Pat just like fell into like playing with us so easily. It was like effortless.
It was really interesting because I was out on tour with No Moss with the Cro-Mags when I got a message from Mark on Instagram, just like, hey, we kind of need this like fill in, maybe full-time thing going. Give it a shot. So I just listened to the album, Grand Descent, over and over again. And they take what they please and Devolve, of course. till I got home and I just started banging it out, you know. Then we met up and went on tour. We met at Baltimore Soundstage, and first night for me of that tour.
Yo, actually, this story gets like crazy dark. Do you want to?
Yeah.
It was rough. Like Budwey was going through some personal stuff, and then like just meeting up with Pat and like getting to him was like a very. It was a huge obstacle.
It was crazy. I mean,
for everyone.
The interesting, because it was like, so Budwey had some personal things, so Budwey had to drop for a few days of the tour to go take care of things at home.
Yeah.
So my first day of the tour, we were like, we got to play as a 3-piece. So my first time meeting James and Mark was just get on the stage and let's make this work, you know, and we killed it. I mean, it was great.
It was so efficient.
It was awesome.
Like,
it sounded great.
Like I remember, Mark, you were like, we're gonna drive through tonight to Baltimore. Yeah. You were like, I'm gonna drive. You can rest a bit, and then we're gonna show up and we're gonna meet up with Pat. We're gonna immediately go to a rehearsal space, and then we're gonna immediately go to the gig. And we got to the rehearsal space, and
oh yeah, my bass cab was blown. So it sounded awful, and I was like, guys, I swear I practiced. Like, you can trust me,
dude. But then I like the song that I probably know the best. I could not stop screwing up this one part of it. Like there were just hiccups in the thing, and we were just
terrified.
I was
ironing them out. You know what I mean?
I was like, I had my head in the clouds because I was so sleep deprived that I just started showing Pat another riff to a song that we weren't even playing that night. I was like, this is how They Take What They Please goes. And then we were just like riffing it together. I remember James going like, is this the best use of our time? And me being like, oh yeah, let's do Visions of Purgatory.
Yeah. But then, you know, once Budwey came back, it was just like the missing piece was back.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
We killed it. I mean, we all fit in together. We all hang out well. And, you know.
And that first night in Baltimore was good. Like it was
not a bad show.
It was not a bad show.
It was a good show.
Yeah.
Some might say it was a great show.
Yeah.
I remember being like, wow, this is gonna work. And obviously, like, you know, I think on a personality level,
it helps when you like each other, because it's like if you have good, you know, chemistry, you're gonna produce something good. You know. It's a good live show.
So what's the plans for you guys now that the album is out? I mean, you mentioned playing Poland next year potentially. What's the touring schedule looking like for you guys for the next?
I mean, we got to keep that stuff, Jackie. We got to keep that stuff under wraps. But we're gonna come to the UK first. January, we're gonna headline that. We got 2 huge festivals in the US that we're gonna play in the spring. We're gonna tour around that, and then we're gonna come to Europe finally and do a full proper big tour in Europe. We've only, we've been to Finland for a couple shows, 2 shows. We went to Netherlands for one and Germany for another, but we want to make sure we hit everywhere in Europe. We have a great European fan base, and we're long overdue.
Well, I would agree with you on that, but I definitely think that I would be very surprised if in 2-3 years' time you guys are not an exponentially bigger band than you are right now as far as like profile size concerned. So thank you so much for your time. And Mark, I'm so pleased that you're on properly on the mend, as they say, recovered. And I hope that I'll see you guys play in the UK when you guys come over.
Yeah, Jackie, we'll see you there.
Awesome. All right. Thank you so much, guys.
Pleasure.
Bye-bye.
Before you die,
That was a track called Respect and Blasphemy by Fuming Mouth. It's off their brand new record, The Last Day of Sun. That is available right now on Nuclear Blast Records, and you can head over to the Bandcamp link that I'll post in the description to the podcast, and you can show those guys your support by buying some music or buying some merchandise and letting them know that it was old Jackson at Into the Necrosphere who sent you. A big thank you to Pat, Mark, Andrew, and James for coming on the show. I must confess, it caught me by surprise just a little to have the entire band there, but an interesting dynamic that it created, even if the conversation was a little shorter than perhaps members of the Legion are used to. But great record and a great band, and I hope you guys enjoyed that episode or enjoyed that conversation, because the episode isn't over. And on that topic, if you think that Megan the Stallion playing a song with spirit box and pretending to be metal is a paradigm shift for the genre, then it might be time for you to get to stepping, because this is my weekly news rant.
A roundabout for judgment. And hang them where the world can see.
All right, folks, we will get started on Metal Storm, as is our tradition. The first headline, Impending Doom in the End single premieres. And Impending Doom, if memory serves me correctly, are a bunch of god botherers. A Christian deathcore band. I recall listening to their album Baptized in Filth, I think it was called, which came out back in 2012, and it wasn't bad. But it wasn't. It clearly didn't grab me enough to the point that I would have mentioned it once over the course of 204 episodes and counting. That being said, In the End, it reads, is a brand new single from Impending Doom's soon-to-be-released EP Last Days, and has premiered online in the form of an official lyric video. The deathcore unit from California will put out the new outing on November the 20th. Let's give it a listen. I mean, I guess as far as deathcore is concerned, it's not terrible, but it's also some of the most unimaginative stuff I've heard in a while. We had Thy Art Is Murder put out a record that was reasonably decent, and there's been a couple of other bands. Carnifex's new album is pretty good as far as deathcore goes. I think deathcore works for me when they mix in a bit of black metal and just something to break up the monotony of, you know, chug, 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 you know, growling as deep as you can, blah, blah, blah. There's just nothing about that I find in any way exciting. What I do find exciting, though, is that Mayhem have confirmed a special show for their 40th anniversary. It says here 2024 marks the 40th anniversary of the legendary Mayhem. To celebrate the occasion, an event will take place at the Centrum Scene in Oslo, Norway on May 11th, highlighted with a very special performance by the band. Tickets are already on sale at this location. It would be pretty goddamn amazing to go there. I'd be curious to know whether by special performance they might wheel out a couple of folks from the band's yesteryears. And by the way, if anybody has been wondering, Attila did actually get in touch with me about those cables, and he is going to be sending them to me in the next couple of days. So I'll keep you guys posted once I've given them a thorough testing. But yeah, he made good on his word, which, you know, am I surprised by that? Maybe I shouldn't be, but, you know, you talk to a guy who's that high profile, and then a lot of times, you know, at the end of conversations, it's like, yeah, stay in touch. I'm going to send you this. I'm going to do this, that, and the other. And most folks, they're just busy, right? He's busy with a bunch of other stuff, and I'm certainly one of probably the last people on his list of, you know, folks to keep in touch with. So I was deeply touched that he actually made the effort to get back to me. And I'm curious to hear what those cables sound like. They've got some stiff competition with the cables that I've got in the system right now. But yeah, we'll see. All right, Xandria have revealed a new video. I'm going to give that one a skip because Xandria looks to me like one of those bands where one of those bands that produce music videos best enjoyed with the volume turned down all the way to 0. Next up, we've got Revulsed, who are dropping a new track. Revulsed, of course, not to be confused by or with Avulsed out of Spain. Revulsed come out of Australia, as far as I know. I'll double check that when we start listening to the song. But it says here, Revulsed have unleashed Nefarious Devourment, the second advanced track of their upcoming second full-length installment, Cerebral Contamination. The latter drops on December the 15th. They are clearly after some of that Christmas metal money. So let's see whether or not it's going to be worth shelling out your ducats for one of these CDs. That last bit literally sounds like he's gargling with fucking molten tar. There's something about this that reminds me a little bit of Deeds of Flesh, particularly around the album Trading Pieces that they did. There's also, ironically, something about it that reminds me a bit of Revulsed, but there's some pretty decent riffing there. I think that groove is really chunky. It's a meaty, nasty groove, so I like the sound of that. The vocals, to me, they feel like they might wear their welcome out a bit as the record progresses. But that being said, we're only a minute in, so we will carry on. That caveman groove, man, that is hard to deny. There's something about this that is quite charming in a twisted sort of way. I'm not sure this is going to be rocketing up my list of favorite albums for 2023, but it's definitely something I'm going to listen to. This is something that I think if you're in the right mood and you like this kind of death metal, it's gonna be brilliant to listen to. It's pretty impressive that this is only their second album. Their first one came out back in 2015, and they've done a couple of singles and stuff since then. But listening to this track, the guys sound like a bunch of salty dogs. You wouldn't imagine that this is only the second time they've actually recorded a full length in a studio. Next up, we have got another Australian band, Caligula's Horse, which is an interesting name for a band. You would assume that if Caligula treated his horse like he treated his women, that horse wasn't having the best time. But anyway, Australian progressive metal outfit Caligula's Horse are back. The four-piece from Brisbane is ringing in a new chapter with a new single and video release for Gollum, and an album announcement for Charcoal Grace, which is set to release on, surprise, surprise, January the 26th, 2024, via Inside Out Music. Never heard of this band before. Like I said, interesting choice of name, but they're Australian, so typically speaking, I will never give 99.9% of Australian bands. I won't give a skip when we do the news rant. So we're not gonna make a change to that equation now. I will bet that there's a couple of members of the Legion that have either skipped straight past this, or they've thrown their phone or whatever they were listening to this on to pieces against the wall in disgust. On a more serious note, Caligula's Horse as a name, like you would imagine if they had given themselves something that maybe conveyed a bit more widespread appeal, that Caligula's Horse could be a pretty big band. I mean, I could see a pretty vast swathe of people really liking this. I think if you're a really big Tool nut hugger, you could potentially get into this. I mean, I can see a fan of Parkway Drive liking this. I could even see a fan of Incubus. Should I call they aren't actually formally great. Their first album, Science, had like one or two decent moments, and that was about it for them. But yeah, they were a band in this vein, I feel. So I can see those people all liking it. Can I see myself or any one of the Legion liking it? I don't find it offensive, but I don't necessarily think it's not into the Necrosphere music. Let's just be honest. And so therefore we move on to another Australian band. Domination Campaign have just announced their sophomore album. It says here, Domination Campaign, a death metal duo comprised of Psychroptics, Jason Pepiat and Joe Haley, will be releasing their sophomore album, A Storm of Steel, on January the 12th, 2024 via Prosthetic Records. Recorded, mixed and mastered at Crawl Space Productions by Joe Haley. Cover artwork created by Jason Pepiat. Jason Pepiat, of course, friend of the show. And so, by virtue of that, and by virtue of the fact that Joe Haley is kin to another friend of the show, we almost immediately need to pay attention to this. And I did quite like the first Domination Campaign record. It came out back in 2021. Onward to Glory. It kind of had a bolt thrower vibe to it, but with the catchiness of Psychroptic, which I really liked. So That being said, this new track is called The Iron Beast, and I'm going to play it for you right now. I like it. There's a really, like, that doomy riff that they have at the beginning of the song, I think is you know, sets up the rest of the record, or sorry, the rest of the song quite well. It helps build tension. Then when that main riff kicks in, there's almost a black metal element to it. There's something about it that reminds me a little bit of God Dethroned. And then, you know, they really make the music work for them, and I think part of that rests on the, you know, rests on the virtue of Jason's voice. I've always loved his voice. I think he has fantastic rhythm, great cadence. You know, he's the kind of guy that can elevate a vocal line into a hook all of its own, just by virtue of the way that he sings and by the way that he interprets material and conveys the lyrics. And he's doing that, yeah. So I'm feeling positive about this one so far. Yeah, excellent work. Definitely an album that I think is going to help get the year, you know, help break some of that fog from January. I'm certainly going to need it because I'll have returned from South Africa, and to go from 30 degrees centigrade to 3 degrees centigrade is no man should be put through that. Okay. Let us carry on. Left Cross have got a new album out and have launched a full stream. I know there's a lot of hype about this. I've seen a load of posts about it all over the socials. It says here, upon desecrated altars, the new album by Virginia-based death metal unity Left Cross is officially out and available for listening in its entirety via Profound Law Records' YouTube channel. Not listened to this yet, so this will be a first for me as well as for probably some of you. But let's get to it. And let's exercise some good judgment and skip past the intro and start on the second song, which is called The Blood of Mars. I don't know if that's doing anything for me. I usually like this, kind of cavernous lo-fi death metal that Profound Law puts out. But there's just something about this that I'm finding pretty dull. Let's skip to another song. I'm going to just jump to track 5. So I'm just randomly grabbing one. This is one called Upon Desecrated Altars. So this is the title track. I just want to hear whether there's something more to them than the, it sounds like they're playing scale-based riffing, and I've always found that very dull. There's a couple of bands that can get away with it, but, they are very, very limited in number. That is a thumbs down, I'm afraid. Tell me if you guys think I'm missing anything here and whether I should go back and, give it a proper listen. But for me, it's not doing it. We've got news here that Enslaved are confirming some European headlining shows. Enslaved are one of those bands where when you dare say even the slightest negative thing about them anywhere, I remember when I was writing for Chronicles of Chaos, it was the same thing. If you dared write even the slightest negative thing about them in a review, you could give them fucking 9.5 out of 10, but dare to write anything that's negative and you'd get a whole load of hate. And I got a whole bunch of hate for that first music video that they put out. I don't know whether it was way back at the start of the year, but there was one in particular that I think initially I didn't like, and then the song kind of came alive and I was like, okay, this is really good. But yeah, some people got their noses bent right out of shape about that. Anyway, one band that everyone loves to hate on is Dimmu Borgir, and they are now unveiling their cover of Deep Purple's Perfect Strangers. The song is featured on their upcoming covers album Inspiratio Profanus, which will be released on December the 8th via Nuclear Blast Records. The band's statement reads, "While preparing our next full-length disappointment, we've decided that we need some quick cash. So enter Inspiratio Profanus, a collection of covers recorded as late as 2 decades ago, presented here as an official brand new release." That is kind of what they're doing, but of course that's not the statement that Selenos has made. But we'll read that in a second. Let's actually hear what the song sounds like. Okay, so the actual statement here reads, the idea of doing Perfect Strangers came about quite a while ago when we were actually getting around to recording it. Before we actually got around to recording it. I think they included this originally on Abrahadabra, if memory serves me correctly. It's a known song by a very well-known band that has influenced many to pick up an instrument. I mean, there isn't anyone who doesn't like Deep Purple. We incorporated our little twist into it while at the same time wanted to stay close to the original, but perhaps it's the more obvious aspects that come to mind when hearing it. The integration between the main musical elements that we also made use of since the beginning, like keyboards and guitars. I actually quite like it, I have to say. It is 1,000,000 times more enjoyable than the Venom cover that they posted a couple of weeks ago, and I dare say it's better than the Celtic Frost cover that's on that as well. That's on that album as well, or that'll be on this compilation. I think what works here is the fact that they haven't done it, actually to the point of the person commenting at the article below. They haven't done it one-to-one in their style. They've put enough of, or they've They've stayed faithfully true to the source material, but they've put just enough of a twist into it to keep it interesting. And that works for me. I also really like the production. But anyway, let's get back to it. I always loved that part in the original, and I think they do it so well here. You can hear exactly where Ghost got a great many of their ideas from, especially on some of their earlier records. But yeah, I think that is excellent. I mentioned about the production. I know for a lot of folks, you know, Dimmu Borgir's production is too clean, too crisp, too polished. But when you listen to it on a big hi-fi and, you know, a decent setup, you will learn to appreciate it. There's a lot of work that's gone into making it sound that way, and their albums do sound just absolutely sensational. You know, not to say that sound, that vibe is going to suit everybody. But you all know I'm not the biggest Dimmu Borgir fan, but you know I'm trying to find the positives here, and this cover is a positive. If they recorded an entire record's worth of covers that sounded like this, you know, and maybe they did, you know, some Kiss, and they can do, I mean, I don't know off the top of my head who comes to mind, you know, as kind of like 70s rock icons or rock and metal icons that they could do. I mean, they could do some Sabbath. I think that would be fucking awesome. I think especially if they treat it the way they've treated this song, I reckon they would do something amazing, and it would have been a lot more exciting than hearing a bunch of you know, death metal, not death metal, but black metal covers that we've heard 1,000,001 times over, that they have included with the rest of that compilation. Okie doke. Ador Dorath, first full length in 9 years on the way. The Czech black metal operatives, Ador Dorath, are getting ready for the release of their first studio record in 9 years, Ultimate Black. For a preview, give a spin to the new song called Astonishment Over Non-Obviousness of the Obvious. And then it says video is unavailable as it's now been made private. So I don't know whether people heard it, said it sucks. Almost as bad as that fucking terrible song title, and gave it a skip, and the band have decided to disappear in shame. So, all right, let's move on. There must be something else that's worth listening to here. While I search for the next article, let me share this. I watched David Fincher's The Killer on Netflix this weekend, and I had been all but ready to give up on any film that is credited to 2023 until I saw this. It is absolutely fantastic. Michael Fassbender is phenomenal. The score, the sound mix in the movie is incredible. David Fincher's direction is par excellence, and the whole thing is great. 10 out of 10 in my book. I loved it. I haven't seen Killers of the Flower Moon yet, but I would say I'm going to be extremely surprised if this is not one of the best albums, or not best albums, what am I on about? One of the best movies of the year, if not the best movie of the year. Okay, next up we have got Shill Magognahar. They have revealed a new track. It says here, 3 days prior to the release of their third long player, Convergence, the Dutch metal act Shill Magognahar premiere an official music video for their latest advanced single called Infinian. Never heard of Shill Magognahar, but Napalm Records describes them as one of the most enthralling acts in extreme music, so they must be right. Let's give it a listen. So I wasn't kidding when I said Napalm Records actually does describe this as an atmospheric black metal one-man show. I wasn't so sure that I was hearing much black metal in that opening riff. I was hearing some new metal, but I was not hearing a lot of black metal, and I did actually like the riff. In all fairness, so I'm not hating on it by saying it's not black metal, so therefore it's rubbish. What I'm looking for here are the vocals, and I was just doing some quick research whilst I was listening to that. Apparently, almost half of the songs on this record are instrumentals, and it seems like this young blood that is involved in Shale Magognahar is or has form for it. I don't know whether that's the case with the rest of this song, but I mean, the actual music is pretty cool. I like it. It's got a nice catchy riff, nice groove. Like the production. I miss those vocals though. Like when a band doesn't do vocals, to me, it just feels like it feels like the music is incomplete. I've never heard an instrumental band that I enjoy. Dysrhythmia, who were signed to Relapse, probably were the closest to that, but beyond that, there's nothing about instrumental music that I find in any way exciting. I want the screams. I feel like the vocals convey at least 70% of the emotion. And whatever emotion the instruments convey is amplified by the vocalist. So when it's not there, it's not right. Like the song, I wish that there were some vocals. I'd be very curious to hear what a song sounds like that has vocals in this, done in that style. I want to show you guys something on YouTube that I thought was quite interesting, and it's particularly interesting because of the types of conversations we've been having with Chris Krieg. I spoke to Katie when she was on the podcast about Spotify, and we've touched on the music business a couple of times. It's something I've been very curious about, especially the whole debate around Spotify. And obviously, I see a huge amount of hate for the company online, and I understand from the musician's perspective where it's coming from. But this YouTube channel, Shortery, have posted a video called Why Spotify is in Major Trouble. And I thought that they shared some pretty instructive facts. So let's give it a quick listen.
Even though Spotify is the most popular music streaming platform in the world, they aren't making any profit. Its business model sucks. The tech giant has tied itself in tight corners trying to get something good from their terrible business model. From a failed investment of $1 billion into podcasting to monthly subscription price increases, mass layoffs, and more. Let's delve into some of the reasons that has Spotify in big trouble. Before Spotify was launched, music piracy was the dominant force. An empire of illegal downloading and piracy was built thanks to the peer-to-peer sound file sharing capability provided by LimeWire, Napster, and many similar platforms. The mainstream music industry was unable to keep it under control. Luckily, by 2006, Spotify was launched with the sole purpose of dealing with piracy. Spotify offered users a basic, limited music catalog for free and made it as easy as pirating. The only difference this time is that the artists would get revenue from each stream. But a freemium is only as good as the revenue model to back it up. For revenue, Spotify's free users can stream unlimited amounts of music on their desktop, but need to listen to ads every once in a while. However, they can easily upgrade to a premium subscription to get the full Spotify experience. But since Spotify saw itself as the legal alternative to piracy, they needed to license the music from the big three labels in the industry: Sony, Universal, and Warner. Spotify agreed to pay $200 million, or 75% of their total revenue, whichever was greater, in exchange for access to the entire catalogs of the big three.
So that right there is what I find particularly interesting about this video. So essentially, no matter how well Spotify does, if they were to exceed that $200 million threshold, then they would need to pay, in terms of revenue, then they would need to pay the big three music labels, so Universal, Sony, and Warner, 75% of their revenue, which is fucking insane. I mean, like, I think the guy has a comparison here in a second where he says if they make $1 billion, it means that they have to pay those labels $750 million. And when you think about it from that perspective, and you start to subtract the costs of actually running the service, doing business, keeping everybody there employed, etc., that changes the picture a little bit from Spotify is making money hand over fist and all they want to pay us is, 4 fractions of a cent. I mean, I'll share my additional thoughts on it in a second, but let's get back to the video.
This was great because users could access all music worldwide without paying per song, but terrible because Spotify had to pay for this access. This means that if Spotify earns $1 billion this year, for example, $750 million will go to the big three. Not only do they have to pay to access the catalog, but they also need to pay the rights holders for a fraction of each stream in perpetuity when streamers pay for it. And let me tell you, the cost structure is absolutely insane. As of 2023, Spotify pays artists between 0.003 cents and 0.005 cents per stream on average. This can vary depending on the streamer location in the world. That works out to an approximate revenue split of 70-30. So that's 70% to the rights holders and 30% to Spotify, which in turn goes to operations, expenses, and salaries, practically leaving nothing for profit. These royalties go to the rights holders regardless of how many times you've streamed the song. In other words, the more songs you stream, the more Spotify has to pay. Some might argue that paying so little per...
So even though the amount of money that's being paid is very little, it's still 70% of the actual revenue being generated by that or by that asset, which again I find to be very, very interesting. And I think what I've taken away from this is actually a lot of the issues with Spotify is structural, and it feels to me like the only way that this can actually be fixed is if another Chris Krieg type character does something equally as disruptive as Chris is doing with AMPWALL and Bandcamp, because I'm not really sure that it feels to me, and if you watch the whole video you'll get what I mean, but it feels to me like I'm not sure Spotify can actually fix this. You remove something like Spotify and most likely people are just going to go back to pirating. You've got Qobuz, you've got Tidal, you've got other, you've got Amazon Music, you've got competition. They don't pay a huge amount either, but it would feel to me like they wouldn't be in a position to be able to pay a huge amount. The real villains here, it seems, from my perspective, are Sony, Universal, and Warner, because they're taking such a big chunk of the pie that there's just about nothing left for anybody else. So again, around the theme of creating resilience in our scene, because I mean the vast majority of the music that we listen to, the Legion listens to every single day, definitely won't be getting any $750 million royalties anytime soon. For us to create resilience in our scene, we're going to have to do something of our own, I think. And once that is done, I think the challenge is going to be getting people to actually support it for the reasons that they might support something like AMPWALL. I mean, if there's a scene where people will support something like that, I definitely think it would be our scene. But yeah, we'll have to see. Time will tell. As an aside, it warms the cockles of my heart to see that Meghan and Harry's podcast was a complete failure. And Spotify does deserve to have been burned for investing in those two fucking idiots. Okay, let's check out what's going on Blabbermouth. Unreleased Ozfest documentary, We Sold Our Souls for Rock and Roll, to finally see the light of day. Kid Rock to co-headline inaugural Rock the Country festivals. I'll bet that'll be a blast. Pantera announces February 2024 North American tour dates with Lamb of God. Anthrax's Joey Belladonna is trying to get something really, really magical for the band's next album, by which he means he's going to try and stay in key for at least 4 bars of every song. We also have news about Jay Weinberg, former drummer of Slipknot. His drumming colleagues offering him words of support following his shock firing from Slipknot. I've got to say, I mean, I don't really give a shit either way. But there does seem to me like there's two stories or multiple sides to that story. Back when Jay was exited from Madball, Freddie Madball, who, you know, by all accounts seems to be a pretty level-headed cat, he didn't exactly have kind words for Jay upon his departure. And I read something today about a former bandmate of Jay's from another band. Name escapes me, probably because they're as big muck as Slipknot, but she wasn't particularly complimentary of him either, and I think she said that him getting fired over email was karmic justice. So I don't know whether the guy is socially awkward, whether he's, you know, maybe gone through a period of being what the scientists would refer to as an entitled douche. But two things I am certain of: one, he's going to have absolutely no problem getting a gig somewhere else, and two, whether the guy's an asshole or not, if somebody has played with you for, I think it's 10 years now that he's been in the band, then you would at least fire him face to face. You at least have a face to face conversation with him. To fire somebody over email, that's the weak man's game, but not anything different from what I would expect from Corey Taylor and Sean fucking Dickhead, whatever his surname is, from Slipknot. Next up, we've got Cradle of Filth explaining their Tel Aviv concert postponement. British extreme metalers Cradle of Filth have announced the postponement of their Tel Aviv show in Israel. Originally scheduled to take place on February the 10th, 2024, the show was slated to be followed by the band's 2024 European tour with Wednesday 13 and Sick and Beautiful. After some Facebook users nefariously suggested that Cradle of Filth's cancellation was due to an affiliation with terrorist groups, the band, which includes members not just from the United Kingdom but from the USA and Czech Republic, released a statement clarifying the decision was made after the governments advised against travel to the regions. Insurers refused to cover the band members for the show, and logistical changes made it difficult for the concert to proceed. What sort of deranged lunatic would suggest that Cradle of Filth have an affiliation with terrorist groups because they choose to postpone the dates in a spot where there's a greater than the global average risk of them being killed by mortar fire? That, I think, is completely fucking insane. It says here on Saturday, Cradle of Filth released the following statement. Cradle of Filth announced the postponement of their Tel Aviv show in Israel, not because of any affiliation with terrorist groups, as some people on Facebook have nefariously suggested, but due to the members' governments advising travel against the region. Same old shit as what was in the article earlier. I am surprised, but I'm not surprised at people saying that they're, have sworn their allegiance to Hamas or whatever else, because much as when the Russia-Ukraine conflict kicked off, and we had a deluge of learned professors and doctors giving us their expert analysis of what was going on, or of Russia-Ukraine relations and history over the years. The last month, I don't know about you, but social media for me has been awash with those very same learned professors and doctors flexing their skills to another part of the world and schooling us on Middle Eastern history. It makes me fucking sick. And the other thing that I find absurd about it, but it's just, I think, part of the toxicity of modern social media culture, is that any time that you dare disagree with anybody, regardless of what side you're on, you are immediately a unadulterated member of the enemy. Anyway, this is an interesting one. Cavalera joined by Discharge and Napalm members for Protest and Survive cover in Manchester. Discharge vocalist Jeff J.J. Janiak and Napalm Death bassist Shane Embry joined Cavalera. The project, featuring Sepultura's founding members Max Cavalera and Igor Cavalera on stage last night. I'm not going to read it. I do want to listen to just a clip of what this sounds like. But just to say, that Cavalera record, the re-recordings of Bestial Devastation and Morbid Visions, it is fucking brilliant. There's no getting around it. I am strongly debating whether that's going to make it into my top 30 of the year, because it's a re-recording. So technically speaking, would re-recordings count? But I don't know. I think I'm gonna flex the rule around those two, because they're fucking absolutely sensational. If any band wants to do a re-recording of their music going forward, They have to go back and they need to listen to those albums, and they need to give themselves a long, hard, honest stare in the mirror. And if they can't say with confidence that they're going to be producing something that is of the same quality as those two re-recordings, then don't bother. That's just my thoughts. But anyway, let's hear what this sounded like.
Please welcome on the stage JJ from Discharge.
We'll skip ahead by a little bit because I'm sure he's just going to announce the song as, this one is called Fuck All Your Bullshit.
We better be ready to do some damage on this motherfucking wall. You ready? Manchester! Are you ready? Protest and survive!
That's fucking cool. I love that sort of thing. That's one of my favorite things at shows. I love when there's multiple vocalists on stage. You guys know that. And I love when there's like just, wild covers going all over. I like chaos. I like anarchy, and I like that feeling that anything can pop off at any second. I would have loved to have been there. By the way, I would also have loved to have been at Damnation, because everybody who was there told me that Akakaka were the fucking bee's knees sucking on a dog's bollocks. So if you were there, count yourself fortunate. All right, let's see if there's one more that we can listen to or that we can check out as we wrap up the news rant for this week. A slightly shorter episode than I normally do. But needless to say, when we've got Chris Pervalis on next week, I'm pretty confident that's going to be a long one. So use the 15 minutes that you get free as, or that you're getting back. Use it productively. Don't watch pornography or take drugs or anything like that. Go out, do some push-ups, do some exercise outside. Spirit Box collaborates with superstar rapper Megan Thee Stallion on Cobra Rock Remix. We're not going to listen to that. I will just say, when I look at some of the other metal news websites fawning over that crap and calling it I think one website called it a paradigm shift for metal. It just literally sounds like a shitty new metal band that someone unearthed the song by and put Megan Thee Stallion's vocals over it. It's so lame. It's these so-called paradigm shifts and these landmarks in metal, that the likes of Metal Hammer and things like that they go on about. It makes me fucking sick. It's like I've seen again a wash all over these news sites. I think Metal Injection had a piece on. We Are the Pit had a piece on about the bands that have now been nominated for Grammys. Who gives a fuck? The Grammys are a load of shit. The weight that a band has with me for winning a Grammy is absolutely zero. I don't care whether they've won a Grammy. I don't care whether they've not been nominated for a Grammy. I think literally the only cool thing about the Grammys is that High on Fire was nominated once. Beyond that, I don't give a shit. And that's only because High on Fire is such a band off the beaten track for the fucking idiots that vote for the Grammys that it was a nice surprise to see Matt Pike there. But beyond that, it's an institution that I just don't personally think we should pay any attention to. It's like the Rock Hall of Fame. Why people care, why people make such a big deal about it. There were people genuinely distraught and upset about the fact that Iron Maiden weren't inducted into the Rock Hall of Fame. So what? Like the Rock Hall of Fame is just part of another vapid set. The exact same people that are taking the $750 million in licensing fees from Spotify and making life hard for every other band. We should distance ourselves from any of that bullshit as much as we possibly can. Anyway, let's wrap it up. The Ghost Inside, a band I've not heard of before, but it says here, fresh off a tour with Under Oath, metalcore giants, The Ghost Inside, have shared a powerful new single with an accompanying music video, Death Grip. Featuring heavy riffage and unforgiving drum patterns backed by haunting industrial sonics, Death Grip features compelling, emotionally charged lyrics as lead singer Jonathan Vigil squares off with his own mortality and comes out victorious. Let's listen.
Feel the cold steel touch my fingertips. I see the light, but I'm not afraid of it. So sew me up and put my bones back where they fit. Don't need a lifeline, I got a death grip. I got a death grip. You wanna play it safe? I'll save the day. We all know that fortune favors the brave. Don't forget, this is sudden death. With bruises, spells that you still have to protect. I still refuse to peak. Will you? You're still trying to be one. You will never achieve.
Let me teach you guys something. Those of you not from South Africa, you may have heard this word if you visited the country or if you've hung around with South Africans, but there's a word that South Africans love to use. I don't really use it often, but I'm going to use it on this occasion. The word is lekker, which is spelled Lekker. It means nice or groovy or cool. When people think, or when people listen to music that they like, they go, oh yeah, it's lekker. If they say I had a good weekend. Yeah, I had a lekker weekend. So far, the first 1 minute and 8 seconds of that song is lekker.
Let out your war cry and give what you came here for. You all the bed, I'll stand and wait. Won't retreat, force him to blow me away. A resting place will be doomed to stay. You dug a hole, but that will be my grave. All pain, no remedy. It makes no difference. Embrace the anarchy surrounding me. You'll build a force field from my enemies. Anarchy surrounding me. Will be no remedy.
Nothing particularly inventive. It's not, it's not like there's been 100 bands that have already done this sort of thing in the past. And let's be fair, when that melodic bit kicks in, I was dreading that there was going to be clean singing, which would have made the song not lekker anymore. But as it stands, I think that Death Grip by The Ghost Inside is lekker. And my friends, I hope that was educational as we wrap up the news rant for this week. All right, Legion, that wraps up another episode of Into the Necrosphere. Episode 204 is in the books. I will be back next week with Chris Pervalis of Internal Bleeding. Right now, I leave you in the very capable hands of Cursebinder, and I say to every single one of you, wherever it is that you are, whatever it is that you're doing, stay safe, stay healthy, and I'll see you bad motherfuckers again next week.
my strength.